What's good, y'all? DJ TMac back here for another great hip-hop conversation. I'm calling it a hip-hop conversation. That's how I always start it, but we don't necessarily have a rapper in the building, a producer in the building, but we have a mixed martial arts fighter, professional mixed martial arts fighter, one of the most winningest Colorado fighters. We're going to get into all the stats and accolades, but you guys know MMA is a big passion of mine, so it's awesome to talk with a friend, a fighter, and I'm looking forward to a good conversation. We have Josh Hellboy Huber in the place right now. What's good, homie?
Good. It's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's interesting because I've done a podcast when I had like a solo podcast a few years ago comparing similarities between mixed martial arts and hip hop. Mm-hmm. So some of those things I pointed out at the time was that mixed martial arts is a blending really of all different martial arts, or at least the most effective ones, right?
For sure.
Effective techniques, things that work. Hip hop is almost that in a music form. Mm-hmm. It's taking all different music genres, making it into something new, something fresh. So I love both things a lot, and it's cool. It's cool to find the similarities between them, but man, we're here to talk fighting today.
No, I've never actually thought of it like that as far as hip hop. That's an interesting point.
Yeah.
And I think performing, performers, I think that has a lot to do with fighting, because fighting, you have to fight on a schedule. You got to peak at the right moment and give your best performance. So being a performer in front of a crowd, there's definitely some similarities there.
Interesting, man, right? Like let's talk about it a little bit more. Training, right?
Yeah.
Training, people don't see all that work that you put in the gym. No. They see the final product.
Oh, absolutely.
People don't see all the time in the studio recording. They listen to the final product.
Oh,
they don't hear everything and see everything that it took to get to that point. So
no, I don't think people have enough empathy, for just what people have to go through to get somewhere, especially if you're trying to do something special and unique. It takes a lot. It takes sacrifices, and it takes hard work, for fighters. Back in the day, there was a lot of barroom brawler types, but the game's changed tremendously. Everyone's an athlete now, and you got to train your ass off. You got to be tough. I mean, I train with a bunch of super high-level guys all the time, and they kick the crap out of you. You're doing that all week, not getting paid very much, so you got to keep a job on the side, and there's just no breaks, man. There's a lot of sacrifice involved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so how long have you been involved in mixed martial arts?
I started in 2006. I'm one of the Ultimate Fighter babies, we're like the baby boomers. Mm-hmm. After the first season of the Ultimate Fighter, just like millions of guys started training. I was one of those. And I knew I was going to be a lifer the first time I stepped in the gym. I loved watching the Ultimate Fighter on the TV. It was the first time it had ever been on cable, and you had access to it. So I just immediately was hooked. I was a super fan. I was all about it. And then I saw some local fights right down the street from my house, and I was watching the guys fight, and I'm like, I could kick these guys' ass, no problem. So I signed up and started fighting just like that.
That's funny, man. So my first exposure, I was real young. I was probably elementary school, and my dad, he went to one or if not a few UFCs in Atlantic City at the time.
Yeah.
When it was big out there, probably at the Trump whatever,
Trump Taj Mahal.
Yeah, the Taj Mahal, all that stuff. So he brought back a couple of almost baseball cards, but it was Chuck Liddell and Tito Ortiz at the time.
I remember the DVDs, the tapes, you'd have to get a hold of them, bootleg copies, and it was so hard to see it, but when you saw Ultimate Fighting, Tito Ortiz back in the day, and all the old school guys, it was just so interesting. It was so different. Mm-hmm. And, I started back in 06, but back in the early 2000s, anyone that was fighting back then is just a super OG, because there was no money, no fame. They were doing it just to fight because they're freaking
glory,
animals,
man.
Glory, exactly.
And something else, seeing Bruce Lee, right? Some Bruce Lee movies as a kid. That's what really inspired me to actually start martial arts.
Bloodsport for me.
Okay.
John Claude, it's a terrible movie about Frank Dukes, who's a terrible liar. And that movie, I think, started a lot of fighters' careers. Bloodsport was the one. It was so cool, and it just, it really started the wheels turning, I guess.
Yeah, it definitely inspired a lot of people to start kickboxing after that, right? But, and I actually remember my first UFC I went to, I was in 9th grade. Andre Arlovsky versus Paul Buentello at the Mohegan Sun.
Knocked him out in like 10 seconds.
Yeah, everybody was like, what the heck happened? They thought he like fainted on top of him, but no. He did faint on top of him, but everybody thought he got a takedown, and then they ended the fight.
Oh, he
but
just level dropped
KO'd
after the right hand, and he collapsed over the top of him. He literally was unconscious before he hit the floor, you know, and it was a weird finish. I remember that one. That was right around the time I started watching, you know, when it was Arlovsky versus Sylvia.
Yeah, that's like 05, 06 at that time.
Right when it started getting on cable, you know, if you watched it before that, then you're definitely a super fan.
Super fan. Hey, we got one of them here, and hey, it's dope to talk MMA, man, especially here in Colorado. The first UFC event ever was held here in Colorado. I got the date somewhere.
Pat Smith, man.
Denver, Colorado, November 12th, 1993. Almost 30 years to the day right now that we're having this conversation.
Mick Nichols, yeah.
Pretty crazy.
Pat Smith was the first Colorado fighter to ever fight on MMA on the first Colorado card. And nobody ever talks about Pat Smith anymore. I don't know what the hell happened to him, but that dude is the original Colorado fighter.
Okay. We're going to have to look up Pat Smith, and maybe have a conversation with him. That's a real OG.
You've seen his
there.
Highlights. You've seen his highlights for sure. He's definitely knocked out some people. You may not know him by name, but he's got some highlights. He's an old dog.
Yeah. So we're here with Hellboy, man, Josh Huber. Right? Currently, you're not really fighting, right?
No.
But, on Tapology, you're still ranked and stuff. So let's run down some of the rankings, which I'm sure, used to be a lot higher, but currently ranked in lightweight, number 180 lightweight pro in the U.S.
I almost never fought at lightweight. I fought like 2 or 3 times at lightweight.
I don't know why everything says lightweight, but...
Yeah,
okay,
those
so then
rankings
maybe these are
bullshit, man.
Yeah,
I was ranked number 1 in Colorado at bantamweight and featherweight at the same time back in like 2017 or 18. I was the top guy in the weight class in Colorado for a few years there. I was always chomping at the bit. I was always real close to making it to the big show, but always one fight away. And I always lost that one fight, so I turned into like essentially a gatekeeper. I'm a journeyman. It is what it is. I didn't get to the UFC, but I fought a ton of UFC guys. I fought Cory Sandhagen, who fought for the interim belt. I fought Alvin Robinson, who's one of the original freaking Colorado UFC guys. I fought a bunch of just super OGs. My problem was I could never say no to a fight. They would offer me a fight, and even if it was on short notice and I was overmatched or above a weight class, I didn't give a shit. I just couldn't say no, without feeling like a coward somehow. I would just I felt like if I was as good as I thought I should be, then I should beat everybody out here, and I wouldn't say no to anybody. And that's the mentality a fighter should have, And I mean, I found out the hard way that I wasn't, but it's not so bad. I had a good run. I had a good career. I'm pretty happy with everything.
Nice. Yeah, that's a good mentality to have, but also a dangerous one at the same time, right? Like you can't get out of your own way.
I don't mind, but it is what it is. I mean, that's what the greats did, I don't think Fedor ever said no to anybody. You think Fedor was ever scared of anybody or...
No, but he held out to get that money or whatever it was. He never fought in the UFC, right?
Well,
it's like
the UFC isn't paying shit. I mean, it's not even close. I mean, like back in the day, they were probably offering him like a tenth of what he's worth, So, I mean, you can't fault him for that. He got to the U.S. when he was too old, but like Fedor's the greatest heavyweight of all time. And I just think of him as like the ultimate unshakable, freaking
stoic,
most intimidating fighter that's ever been.
Yeah, I agree.
Because he's not trying to scare anybody. That's the way he is. And like, he's not scared of anybody. He'd fight anybody anytime. And I mean, that's how I felt like it should be. And I didn't want to be one of these guys that's, fighting cans, being a can crusher, and just like getting myself to the show just so I could get my ass kicked because I've been beating up a bunch of chumps on the way. Like, I wanted to be seasoned and, ready to go when I got there. And I thought I would, but I didn't. A lot of people said I should have been. I felt like I was the most exciting fighter in the state for years, like win or lose, I would put on fight of the night. I got fight of the night like half the times I went out, and I fought through some insane injuries and, I was just a really game, exciting fighter. I won a lot more than I lost. I think my final record is like 23-13, and I had a lot of tough fights. So it's not like I was a bad fighter. I just never got over that hump, but I always made it fun. I always made it exciting. I was always knocking people out or choking them out. And I would throw it down with anybody. I'd trade. I'd play tag. I didn't give a shit. I'd stand toe-to-toe with anyone.
Yeah, man. True finisher. We got 5 wins by KO, 12 submissions. And you fought for multiple regional organizations, LFA, also World Series of Fighting, which is now PFL.
I fought for Glory.
Fought for
Glory kickboxing. That's my favorite, actually. That's a big one.
Why was that your favorite?
Because Glory's like international, man. You got like freaking guys from all over the world fighting on that card. The very best kickboxers in the world.
Was that in Colorado? Did they come to here and then they?
I fought Jonathan Wyderico at Ritchie Center over by the University of Denver campus, and we got fight in the night that night. We threw down. I went up freaking weight class to fight the guy because it was a great opportunity to fight on Glory, and I fought him on short notice, and I fought him at I think we fought at 150. And I had most of my success at 135. I fought at 145 for a while. But at that time, I was fighting at 135, and I went up 15 pounds to fight him. And I remember someone telling me if I would have threw like 10 more punches in the third round, I would have won the fight. It was super close. It was a split decision, and he won. I told him he won in the freaking ring after the fight. I'm like, I think you won, bro, because he kicked the shit out of me. But it was a real close fight, and that's one of my favorite fights of all time.
That's awesome. I'm going to have to look that one up. But, man, the fights are exciting no matter what. Like, I was watching some of them this morning. It's cool, man, especially that Cory Sandhagen one. I mean, that's somebody who's, like, one of my favorite fighters to watch now. So to see you, rocking him at some points, putting him down, like, giving him trouble. It was a fun one to watch.
The best way I could describe that fight is I kicked Cory Sandhagen's ass. He just kicked my ass worse. Like, he totally won, no doubt about it, but I was taking it to him. I watched the fight quite a few times. He won the first round, and I was on my way to winning the second round. I was kicking the shit out of him, and then he started kicking my legs out from under me, and that's how he won the fight, and he started taking me down. And I'm not trying to say anything about takedowns or anything. I mean, he did what he had to do to fight, but I didn't fucking shoot on him. He was shooting on me. He didn't want to go toe-to-toe no more. We were banging, and I was breaking his fucking face. Like, I think I broke his nose. I hit him with like 2 or 3 Superman punches, super clean, and he's one of my favorite fighters. I'm not trying to talk shit or disrespect him at all. He's a way better fighter than me. He's one of the best in the world. And I was proud to get in there and go toe-to-toe with the guy. But, no, that was a fine showing for me, and that shows what kind of fighter I am. Mm-hmm. Even though I lost, we left that shit bloody as hell. And I remember I was quoted before that fight saying that we're probably both going to end up in the hospital afterwards. And I don't think either one of us did, but it was pretty damn close. I didn't go to the hospital.
Pretty damn close.
In that fight, if you notice, he knocks the bottom row of my teeth back, not completely out. And you could see it on the tape. The announcers even notice and make mention of it, because he knocked 4 of my teeth backwards, not completely out, but they hinged like back. And I reached in and I reset my teeth I think it was in the third round, but you could see it on tape. You could literally see me reaching in my mouth and resetting my teeth. And I never went to the dentist after that, and they're still there. I just reset my own teeth mid-fight, so that makes me an amateur dentist.
We have the Hellboy name, but maybe the dentist. I know a few people have that, but maybe you could have that for
Josh
another reason.
Is the dentist, and he's a freaking madman. That dude's a psychopath. I like my nickname. It suits me. It was given to me by Spencer Hooker, who's my first grappling coach way back in the day, and it's literally because I look like Joaquin Hansen, the original Hellboy. We look like twins, and we actually fight pretty similar too. He's a freaking animal. He's got some highlights that a lot of people have probably seen, but they don't know him by name, which is a shame because he's an original OG. He was one of the original Dutch Netherlands fighters to actually go in Pride and have success. There wasn't a whole lot of those guys doing MMA back then. It was kickboxing only.
Interesting, man. But I want to go back to this Cory Sandhagen fight real quick. How long does it take your leg to recover from a fight like that, man?
Well, at that time, I didn't even have a car at that time, so I was taking the bus. And I had to walk a lot, and that actually helped quite a bit because you're getting the blood flowing.
Yeah.
My leg was bruised from the bottom of my knee all the way to my groin, just completely black. Because he dropped me like 5 or 6 times with leg kicks. He kept targeting my inside leg. And at that time, I was very heavy on my feet. I was a boxer. I was a puncher. He actually changed the way I fought quite a bit. I learned a lot to kick more and get lighter on my feet and defend kicks better after that. Because him and his camp, they saw flaw. They freaking pinpointed it, and they fucking game planned me, and they knew what the hell to do, and they executed it perfectly. But I was fine. I was walking around just really damn slow for, I don't know, like 2 or 3 weeks, and the bruising went away like 3 or 4 weeks later. Some people were telling me I was in danger of getting blood clots because there was so much bruising in the area. It was pretty much black, but I think by walking around a lot at that time, it actually helped me heal.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. I mean, somebody who took a lot of leg kicks in a fight that I think about, or I remember them even talking about that it took a long time to recover, was Dustin Poirier after the Gaethje fight.
Well, Justin Gaethje's the freaking animal, man. That dude kicks harder than anybody.
One of the best.
Usually guys have a certain amount of fear about throwing leg kicks, you know, because they're going to get checked and you could break your shin. Gaethje don't give a fuck. He throws as hard as he can.
What kind of conditioning is that man doing to his shin?
I've trained with Gaethje, man. He's my favorite all-time fighter. He's my goddamn spirit animal, man. He strapped the belt on me after I won the King of Sparta tournament.
Oh, shit.
Like, he was in the cage with me, and he put the belt on me, and I was so in the moment that I didn't even know it was Gaethje. So, like, I watched the tape later, and I'm like, holy shit, that's my favorite fighter putting the belt on me after my, like, the peak of my career. But no, we're I wouldn't say we're friends, you know. I know him. We say what's up every time we see him. I've hung out with him a couple times. I've sparred him. He put me on my head once in front of his whole family. It looked like he almost killed me and shit, but I popped right up smiling, and I think his parents must have thought I was insane or some shit. But it was pretty funny. It's one of my favorite sparring stories. He always went hard. I mean, I've known him since back in the day. He fought one of my teammates as an amateur back in 2007, 2008 or something. He was the Ring of Fire champion for a long time. The Ring of Fire was like the biggest promotion in Colorado for a long, long time until they finally went under like 5 or 6 years ago.
Interesting. Something, you know, some of my early exposure to Colorado was also MMA, to bring it back to like the relationship with Colorado has with MMA. I remember seeing this gym and this fight team, and I was like, man, if I'm gonna be a fighter, I'm gonna go out there. Muscle Farm. Remember Muscle Farm had a big hold on stuff out here for a while?
Muscle Farm was the old Grudge guys, you know. They had like this state-of-the-art facility. So like all the best fighters from Grudge, which Grudge was the big team when I moved up to Denver. That was like where all the UFC guys train. Like that was the ultimate. So they just got a world-class facility, and they drew all the best fighters over there for a while, but it didn't last very long, you know, like that was like a whole sponsorship thing. You know, I was never a part of that. I knew a lot of guys that trained there, but I was always kind of a bit of an outcast, so I was always training on kind of smaller teams and doing my own thing. But I've trained with a lot of guys that were there. It was a great facility. It didn't last that long. I think most of those guys now train at Elevation, Team Elevation.
Yeah.
And that's the big one now.
That's a big one. And there's so many gyms
and Factory
out here.
X, of course. Factory X is right there. I think Factory X is probably the top team. I trained there for a couple years. Like this was a while ago, but Factory X and Elevation are right there. They got a bunch of UFC guys.
Let's name some of these pro fighters that, you know, go to these gyms. So we mentioned Cory Sandhagen. I know Anthony Smith. I believe he's a Factory X guy.
He's from Nebraska. He trains in Factory X, like not full time, but he comes in and out. But
I know for his fight camps primarily.
Yeah. I've met him way back in the day when I was going up to Nebraska fighting for VFC, Victory Fighting Championships. He was their champion for a long time. That guy put in some work. He grinded for a long time. Usually you don't see guys in the UFC with that many losses, You know, like he had like, I don't know, 12 or 15 losses before he got to the show. And I mean, that just shows you the kind of grind and heart that dude had. He was fighting at 170 back in the day, looking like a skeleton.
That's crazy.
I fought on the same card as him like at least once or twice. And I remember just seeing him like looking like a freaking ghost of a man, because he's kind of pale skinned, you know, and just looking freakishly skinny. He was doing freak weight cuts to try to get over. That's what a lot of fighters are doing, including myself. You know, I fought at 135 for a long time, just doing massive, unhealthy weight cuts, and he was doing that for a while. And he finally hit success when he stopped doing it and went up to light heavyweight and fought at a more natural weight, and he got a world title shot. I got a ton of respect for Anthony Smith, and he's an analyst, you know, for the UFC, smart guy, you know, very organized. You know, he's a guy that I really look up to. I would definitely love some advice from him. You know, if he had anything to say, I would be definitely.
Hey, we're gonna try to get him on the program, and you know, we'll get a whole bunch of information.
I don't know him that well. I mean,
no, just like, you know,
I trained with him before. I mean, we were at Factory X at the same time. There's a lot of great fighters there. Royval's there, Brandon Royval, who was my main training partner for years.
Who's got a title shot coming up in about a month. So hey, good luck to Royval.
He's fighting Pantoja. Yeah. I looked up Pantoja, and I'm like, maybe Pantoja's southpaw, and he needs a southpaw training partner. I'll hit him up, but he's not.
Who needs help?
He's righty. And I don't know. I mean, I left Factory X on really good terms. You know, I just kind of retired at that time and moved on. I had a couple like ill-fated comeback fights after that, you know, but I love those guys. I trained with them for years, and when you're in the trenches sweating and bleeding with guys like that, you really have strong bonds. And me and Royval we sparred like, I don't know, 2-3 times a week, you know, every Friday when it was cage time and live sparring, like go time, it was always me and him, and we were going back and forth, and he's one of my favorite all-time fighters. I mean, the only reason I did all right against him is because I had so much size, you know. He's like not nearly as big as me, but if he was, he'd beat the shit out of me, no problem.
Hey man, salute to Royval. Good luck in that fight next month, man. Bring that shit home, and then we have to get the UFC champ on the program.
They got a lot of up and comers, man. Like a lot of undefeated guys that are right on the cusp. You know,
name some of these guys that we should be on the lookout for.
Markel, I don't know his last name. Medros or something. He just got in the UFC from the Contender Series. Man, I'm bad with last names. I should know these guys that beat my fucking face in.
Maybe that's why.
Yeah, it's a bad memory. But they got a lot of just young, up-and-coming guys that are right there. You know, just need 2 or 3 more wins, and they do a great job of grooming their fighters, you know, bringing them along perfectly, you know, getting them the right opponents and the right fucking training, and they game plan really well and really build guys up the right way, you know. Like they take a lot of super tough fights, and they get their guys there really fast, and you got to respect what Mark Montoya is doing, the head coach there. I learned a lot from him in my time there. He's a great leader, you know, a great manager.
Yeah, if I ever see him and walking somebody out, I'm like, all right, they're prepared. Like, they have a game plan, and most of the time, you know, they end up in the winner's circle.
We had 8 required practices a week. Like, you had to be at 8 team practices, like the pro team practices, at least 8 a week, and they would literally count it. You know, like we would do just like little things to make sure everyone's being held accountable. You know, and you just couldn't miss practice, you know, everyone would be on you, especially the coach, you know, and that's, it's important to have that structure, because fighting's kind of it's like we're a bunch of carnies, you know, and you got to keep us freaking on a leash sometimes to get us training hard and fighting at our best.
Yeah, you don't necessarily need to do all those things, right? It's like, yo, you could John Jones it and, you know, be partying the week of the fight. But like, you know, those people that do implement those more professional systems and styles, you know, you could see it through their fighters and the performances.
For sure. I mean, it makes a big difference, you know, and I mean, that was the best run of my career for sure. No doubt about it. You know, I've always been more of I'm just like an old hippie, you know, I just kind of do my own thing, you know. I try not to worry too much. I always loved training. I always loved going to the gym and training. it's never been hard for me to train hard because I love it so much, and I just love being there with the guys. Like, that's my home. That's what feels like home to me. You know, home for me is just where I lay my head, really, but I love the gym. That's where I dwell, you know. So, yeah.
Before fighting, were you into sports at all? Were you? I know you always talk about being competitive. So where does that drive come from?
I've got a ton of brothers. I've got 3 brothers and then 4 stepbrothers, and I'm the third youngest, you know, so a lot of older brothers, and they weren't the nicest guys. They used to kick the shit out of me, and we used to play a lot of sports, you know. We were, you know, young, poor kids in the hood growing up, and we were outside all the time. You know, all the neighborhood kids were playing games, doing stuff, playing tag, baseball games, you know, whatever. We were just always playing, always competitive. I always loved athletics. And yeah, I mean, fighting for me was... I always loved fighting, you know, I was always a big fan, but my big thing was baseball. I loved playing baseball. That was my main thing. Like, I was so good at it, and I practiced it all the time, and I grew up on it, and I'm still a big baseball fan. I got almost as much knowledge about baseball as I do about fighting, and, you know, it's crazy how much stats and information you could store away and call upon when somebody asks you and you don't even think about these things.
That's funny.
Yeah.
What are, you know, we talked about some similarities between like hip hop and fighting. What are some of those skills or similarities you think between baseball and fighting that made you successful?
Just hand-eye. You know, hitting a baseball is the hardest thing to do in sports. I think it's like been proven. Like hitting a fastball is insanely hard. These guys are throwing so hard, and you have to track it and time it. You know, and just, I always wanted to play infield, so we did a lot of infield practice, you know, just hand-eye coordination. You know, you're tracking the ball with your eyes all the time. You're constantly tracking the ball. And I always felt like that was a big correlation between that, because I've always been a great counterpuncher. I've always been good at just staying in the pocket and slipping by a little bit and countering. And just when you start counterpunching guys, they don't even want to punch you anymore. So it's a really intimidating thing that you can do, and I was always great at that. You know, I was wild as hell as a fighter. I used to just drop my hands and just invite guys to hit me, like, here it is, come get it, let's play tag. Like, I'll freaking trade with anybody, and yeah, I had like one of the best damn chins of all time, you know, in my day.
That's awesome, man. That's cool. I'm sure training and fight camps have evolved tremendously since you first started.
Oh, shit.
The structure, like we talk about, you know, being more professional with it. And now you're starting to train guys yourself, right? Mm-hmm. Are you training? I know you're doing private lessons, but are you trying to sort of build up a team?
Yeah. Well, I'm starting very small. You know, I'm starting from the ground up. Mm-hmm. I've been with the same jiu-jitsu team for 10, 11 years, you know, and they've been great for me, and I'm loyal to them. So I'm just teaching a few classes out of theirs. I'm taking classes at other places. I'm teaching at 3 different schools right now, running classes. I teach grappling and kickboxing. But sorry, I forgot the question. What was the question?
We were just talking about like sort of the evolution of training.
Oh yeah, I mean,
you know, like what sort of things like are you like, guys, we are not doing this. We got to do it this way.
Well,
now.
Back in the day, we used to just spar. We used to just beat the crap out of each other. There wasn't a whole lot to it. We'd do jiu-jitsu practice sometimes, but a lot of guys were just doing whatever they liked, you know, whatever was fun for them. So guys weren't necessarily training their weaknesses as much as they should have, and I was as guilty of that as anybody. You know, I wanted to be a striker, and I thought jiu-jitsu was freaking stupid, and I hated it so much, and like I was so bad at it that I just didn't even want to do it. And I didn't have great quality coaches back then to freaking make me do it, so I just kind of did what I was good at and what was more fun, and then I had to lose a bunch of damn fights and get choked out a bunch of times before I'm like, hey, maybe there's something to this. Honestly, it was a friend of mine, like one of my best friends. He was a blue belt when I was one of the best amateurs in the state, and I had no belt at that time in jiu-jitsu. I was about to go pro, and I thought I was a big deal, a hot shot, and then I went and trained with this guy who was just a blue belt, you know, which is one step above white belt, and he just smoked me. He just tore me apart, just made me look so bad, and I was just like... And he was such a cool and humble guy, you know, like he wasn't a dick about it. So it was really just, that really changed my whole perspective. And I'm like, why is this guy with no fights, this nobody blue belt just kicking the shit out of me. So it really changed my perspective, and it changed the path I was on. And I eventually got my black belt in jiu-jitsu. And yeah, I mean, it's very important. You have to train your weaknesses. You can't just spar all the time and do fun training. You got to do the hard work, you know, the down in the dump stuff. You got to wrestle a lot, you know, like guys like Derek Lewis, who's a big, powerful heavyweight, can get away with being lazy, but then you see him fight a world-class grappler
this weekend,
and then he just gets dominated and look like a fool because he doesn't train hard, because he's fat and fucking a heavyweight and unprepared, and he doesn't train jiu-jitsu or wrestling like he should. You know, if he trained to his full potential, he'd be the best in the world. I think of him like Shaq, you know, if like Shaq would have learned to shoot free throws, he would have been the freaking top scorer of all time, but he never even worked on it. He wouldn't even practice it. He would just literally like talk shit to people that would tell him to practice his free throws, and he'd cost his team games for not being a hard worker. You know, like he was great, you know, with his talent, but he didn't push as hard as he could have been, and he could have been the best of all time, you know. And I see like Derek Lewis and guys like that, you know, like heavyweights and low-level fighters can get away with being one-dimensional, but guys in my weight class, you know, guys anywhere from 125 to up to 205, they got to be well-rounded, athletic, good at wrestling, good at striking, good at submission defense, have cardio that you wouldn't believe. I mean, you wouldn't believe the cardio that goes into fighting. It's the toughest damn sport in the world, all right? It's sprint, grapple, submission, defense, sprint, you know, like it's a freaking, it'll explode your heart, you know. I've seen so many guys think they're going to hang in the gym on their first day, and they're just throwing up after like 10, 20 minutes, you know. Like, we're athletes now. Back in the day, I was like a freaking skinny, you know, white trashy looking kid. I could hit hard, but I wasn't intimidating at all. I didn't look athletic. And then like the further I went, the more athletic I had to become to freaking fight in this weight class.
To keep up, right?
Yeah, I mean, like you look at the guys fighting at 35 and 45, they are freak athletes. Like Barbosa, you know, he just had a fight. Like that guy's fighting at 45. You know, I fought some guys at 145 that were so damn big and athletic, I had to move down to 35, and that's another evolution of it. I kept getting smaller with my weight classes as I got bigger physically. Wow. So it just like...
That's tough.
Oh, man. I was cutting 30 to 35 pounds for a long time, making 135, which is...
And about how long of a time frame are you about cutting that?
8 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks.
That's not like the last week, like, hey, we're sucking 30, but hey, that's something that you're pretty focused on throughout the training camp, right?
I would get fat between fights, and people would be like, oh, just keep your weight down, blah, blah, blah. It's like, bro, I've been starving myself for like months, okay, to make this weight. You don't think I'm going to indulge myself and like let myself enjoy some food for a little while? So I would get a little bit chunky between fights, but I did one fight where I got up to 177. And then I started camp at 177 and fought at 135. And I made weight. And I freaking performed. I didn't win that fight, actually, but I went to a decision, and I gave the guy a real good fight. But it's the thing. Like, I was too small for 45, so I had to go down. But, you know, like, as far as the weight cut itself, I mean, you got to starve yourself. There's no other way around. You could eat as clean as you want, but you got to eat less and burn more. And then you get into all kinds of stuff. Like, I'm not a nutritionist. I was actually talking to Colin about this the other day because that's his area of expertise. Your body starts doing weird things when you're depriving it of food and calories, you know, like you won't just, like, a weight cut is not a straight line. There's peaks and valleys. You gain weight for no reason, and it's inexplicable, and you're weighing yourself every day, and you'll wake up and you're like 2 pounds heavier than you were the day before, and you're like, fuck. And, you know, and you're having an anxiety attack, and then you starve yourself even more and freaking go even harder to get that pound off, you know, and then it's just like such a psychological game. And I mean, there's a lot of guys that are doing it. They have to eat super clean, you know, be super professional with everything, and it's hard to make that weight. And that's one of the big things about now and then. Back then, I was fighting at 55, 45. I wasn't cutting weight at all, and I was doing fine. I was definitely not big, but yeah. Now, if
You felt better in your performances that way too, instead of
well,
doing the
no, I
draining,
mean,
or
that's the thing. It's a double-edged sword. I mean, you have to work so hard to make that weight that you are in tremendous shape, but you're also depleted. So you're riding a fine line there.
yeah.
And I've been close to freaking death making 35. People think I'm exaggerating. I've had to have my coaches like hold the sauna door shut, and I'm too fucking weak to even push it open. I'm literally crawling, like trying to get some fresh air, because you're breathing in sauna air and you haven't had a drink in like 20 hours, and you're at like your freaking maximum weight cut allowance. Your kidneys start shutting down. Like I literally, you think your back's really hurting, but it's not your back. It's your kidneys. They're starting to fail. Like they're starting to ache because you're sucking so much out and you have nothing in there anymore. And like, it's rough, man. And then you got to fight the next day. So yeah, it's tough.
It's crazy, right? Because everybody in the sport knows it's happened. A lot of people are doing it. It seems like, more people are starting to make that move up instead of down, and are having some success. But it's a culture that, it's going to be hard to break that and get people to stop doing it. People talk about implementing more weight classes, but then that's more opportunities for people to cut down to different weights. So it's a weird thing. So I mean,
ultimately,
will it ever go away? Is this always going to be around, you think?
There's ways of manipulating things. Like I remember when the hydration test came out for 1FC, a lot of people were excited about that. Like, this is the answer to overweight cutting. But then I was just watching this video not that long ago about how that test can be manipulated easily. So it's just like guys are just going to find ways to cheat. Yeah. Like that's the whole thing. There's a whole industry like built to cheat the test, to cheat the system. And then there's the industry to try to stop them, but they're always a step behind.
Yeah, it's a constant battle.
But no, I don't think there is a solution. I think guys are just going to do what they do. More guys are fighting at their natural weight, which is great, but like there's guys that are in between, and I was one of those guys. Like when I first started, I was not tall for featherweight, 145, but I was right there. I was taller for the weight class. And then as time went on, everyone just got bigger and bigger. And I remember the last time, the guy that I fought at 45 that made me want to move down, he was like 6 foot and just jacked. He was bigger than me, like width-wise, and taller than me. He was huge. I don't know how the hell he made the weight class. And I remember I was just like, fuck this. I got to go down to 35. Like, so I was kind of stuck in between where it was, if I had 140, that would have been ideal. But I pushed it to 135, and yeah, man, I looked deathly. I mean, I'm freaking bald, right? So I look like a human skeleton. My eyes are sucked in. I'm like as gaunt as you can be. Like, I can't even talk. Your voice is gone. Oh. You have people like making sure you don't fall over. It's bad. It's just a bad culture, and it's the damn wrestlers' fault. These freaking wrestlers came in and changed everything. Yeah. It's like nobody cut weight in boxing before wrestlers started changing it. I remember Arturo Gatti did a weight cut for a boxing match because they weigh him the day in and the day of the fight and the day before. He did like a wrestling weight cut for a boxing match way back in the day, and nobody knew what the hell it was at that time. And they weighed him the next day, and they're like, this son of a bitch just put on 15 pounds overnight. So they sued him. They sued the whole thing. They were like, what the hell is this? This guy is like, you guys must be cheating on his first weight. You must not have weighed him correctly or something like that. He just did a regular weight cut that everyone's doing today, but he did it back then in a different sport.
And they really would not exposed to it. They didn't know what that was. And
they like freaked out. It like changed the system, right? So like then a lot of boxers started doing that, and then like it just became commonplace in MMA because there's a lot of wrestlers in MMA. Wrestlers cut weight for their matches. They invented this shit. It's their damn fault. The bastards. Fucking. I love wrestling. I do a lot of wrestling, but I've never been a wrestler. I've always been the anti-wrestler, and that's one of the things I always like just get annoyed about is guys, like, we don't need to cut weight.
Yeah.
I'm cutting all this weight to fight a guy that I'm pretty much the same size as anyway.
Everybody loses weight to then gain it the next day, so it's always a weird...
We're all within 5 pounds anyway. You know, you rarely see a huge size advantage at like the high levels. You do see it, but not that often. And it's just crazy to me.
Something else that goes along with, you know, like you sort of said, cheating, you know, as far as weight cutting, is like the PED thing.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like, you've been in gyms, like how rampant is it?
They don't talk about it in the gym. I've never done PEDs. I fucking hate PEDs. I've fought a bunch of guys on PEDs, you know. I've lost to guys on PEDs that got caught in the UFC after they got signed, that stole my fucking opportunity. And it's atrocious. It's cheating. It's immoral, whatever the hell it is. It's not right, you know, like guys like, well, why doesn't everyone take it? You know, we just level the playing field. I don't want to take that shit. I don't want to have heart problems and health problems. And once you get on it, you can't get off. You're relying on it. You know, like the perfect analogy for steroids is like you're at the poker table, you're way up on chips, but you can never cash out. You just got to keep playing, right? So it's like, I got to take steroids to level the playing field. That's just not right, because I don't want the health problems and I don't want the dependence on it and all the shit that goes along with it. And there's a lot of guys that are cheating, and that's what it is. They're cheating. They're enhancing their performance. Guys on steroids don't have to recover like everyone else. Like, I used to walk around beat up freaking 7 days a week. You know, I had very little time in between practices to you know, re-energize and, you know, recover. You know, guys on steroids, they recover instantly. They don't get sore, so they're just going all the time. And that's also what leads to injuries, is because they're have so much muscle growth that their tendons can't support it, you know, so they have blowouts all the time. And I mean, it's a double-edged sword, but ultimately they're cheating. They're enhancing their performance, and they're not paying their dues. They're not putting in the hard work and feeling the pain like everyone else. And it's bullshit, and I think they should die.
End of story. That's it. Interesting, man. Interesting. Let's talk about some other, like, you know, relevant topics that's happening in MMA. Fight that happened a few weeks ago, you know, that happened on short notice. Unfortunately, was Volkanovski and Islam.
Volk and his same mentality, man. Volk thought he could do it. It was a 1 in a million shot. He was never going to get that fight otherwise. You know, like, he would have had to fight years for it, and it probably wouldn't have happened because he wouldn't have been champion anymore by the time he got there. So he took a shot. You got to give him credit. It was a dumb move, but that's the kind of guy he is. Yeah. I literally just made a post about this, you know, dumb but brave but dumb, you know.
If you're going to be dumb, you got to be tough, right? That's a song. I remember them playing that the Jackass movie.
You got to give it to Islam, man. The guy made some adjustments, and he, like, just schooled him. He, like, had the answer for him, you know, like, I thought Volkanovski was going to be the one to make an adjustment, and I thought he was going to do well. I would have never bet on him. You know, the guys that win short notice fights and championship fights is so small. I think Michael Bisping's the only one I could think of that ever won a title on short notice. So it's a huge ask, and you got to give him all the credit in the world for taking it. And I think people need to have empathy for the guy and show him, like, much love for the warrior he is. A lot of people are just shitting on him because he's a loser now, and it's just now he's less relevant.
That makes no sense.
You know, it's just like, oh, what an idiot. You know, like, this guy's stupid. He should be more fucking business savvy or whatever. But it's just like, that's not how fighters are. That's not what fighting is, man. Like, we're not regular people, you know. Like, regular people want to do regular shit and lead their regular boring ass lives. Fighters do stupid shit, but you know, like, it's just the way we are. Like, we take risks. I was just gonna say, glory.
More risk. Like, you guys are willing to take that on.
Yeah, I mean,
want to.
That was my gift as a fighter. It's like, I didn't give a fuck. You know, like, I did not care about getting hit. I was never scared of getting injured. I just was, like, ruthless, you know, and that took me a long way, because I was never like a great athlete, you know. I was never anything super special physically or mentally, you know. I mean, I was mentally. That was my whole thing. I was just tough as hell, and I wanted it real bad, and that'll take you a long way, you know. And I, like we were saying before, I hope that's enough. You know, I don't think I ever needed enhancement, and it sucks that you have to deal with that kind of thing, and it's not just fighting, it's every sport. There's cheating in every sport. They catch cheaters all the damn time, man.
Yeah.
Like every sport on the highest levels, you got baseball teams that are freaking like have spy shit set up, it's just like unbelievable.
That's wild.
That's
crazy, man.
I think about the baseball players back in the 70s that were doing cocaine, man. There was like there was a report that like 60 or maybe it was like 40% of players in MLB were on cocaine at a certain time, and they were taking like greenies, greenies, like they're
the cat treats.
It's speed. It's pretty much speed, and like they were taking them all the time, to enhance their freaking game. So like there's always been cheating, man. Like it doesn't matter. There's always going to be an industry for cheating, and then there's the industry to stop it, but they're always a step behind.
Interesting, man. Speaking of competing industries, Francis Ngannou leaving the UFC, and that man just got a big bag out in Saudi Arabia.
He changed the whole game, man. He changed it for everybody.
So for people who are not aware, Francis Ngannou was a UFC heavyweight champion, and he fought out his contract, which is, number one, very rare for a fighter to do who is at the championship level, and number two, like nobody else has done this.
No.
There's been lower level people who have gotten who have fought out their contracts, but it comes with a lot of risk. So he bet on himself on the last fight on his contract, and then waited a whole nother year after that to actually get out of the contract. It was like a sunset date, it could not go past this time, and he waited it out, and everybody thought he was making the wrong decision, did the bad thing, but in my book, he won already, and he's going to continue to win. So what is your opinion on his situation going from MMA to pretty much beating the lineal heavyweight boxing champion?
I mean, I didn't think he was going to do that. I don't think anybody thought he was going to do as well as he did. I haven't actually seen the fight. I read about it. I saw the highlights. And you got to give him a ton of credit because he took on the best heavyweight, one of the best heavyweights of all time, and stood with him and banged. I mean, that's insane to me. But I always thought he was making the right decision. Mm-hmm. There's so many fighters that are fighting out their contracts and getting paid way more. Not even like super high level guys like Shane Burgos.
I was just gonna say that. Went over to PFL recently.
He's getting doubled or tripled his salary by going somewhere else, and it just shows you like the UFC has a stranglehold on like they do right now, but they're not going to. They're getting shipped away more and more because they don't pay. They're greedy. Like Dana White's just a greedy fat son of a bitch, and he's like wants it all for himself. He sold his company, he sold out already, but he's still just like, beating women and freaking like just
power
exploiting
slap
fighters, and like that power slap's a goddamn disgrace, man. That thing
it keeps popping up on my YouTube. I'm like, do not show me this.
It's ridiculous. There's a Colorado fighter I've known for years that's doing it, and I'm just like, I don't want to talk about it, but it's just like, dude, what the hell are you doing? They're not paying anything. They're exploiting. That's worse than fighter exploitation because these guys aren't even athletes. You can't even defend yourself in this shit. So it's just like
so crazy.
It's literally like, hey, you want to come get a concussion? Hey, you want to come get brain damage? We'll give you $2,000 or $3,000, and then we'll send you on your way.
Michael Bisping is commentating this. Like,
is he?
Oh yeah, a few like
crazy, man.
Alan Joban, like I had to just click it to see, and it's like a UFC broadcast with power slap. It's the refs. It's the same refs. Like,
there's all these gimmicks.
What are we doing here?
I can't believe the UFC picked it up. I mean, it's a gimmick. It's a terrible gimmick. It's exploitation, man. It's like freaking Jerry Springer on steroids, and they're actually like...
It's the same audience that watches it, I bet. That
daytime
television audience, they're watching
cool.
power slap.
And yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, who the hell's watching this? I don't want to see this shit. I like fighting, man. There's beauty in fighting. There's counters, man.
Art.
I teach people how to freaking set guys up and how to counter guys and how to beat them, and it's a chess match. It's a freaking moving board. There's all these things you can do, but when you're standing there kicking the shit out of each other, like, and you can't defend yourself, that's the biggest thing for me. It's like, yeah, you're just you're using guys up and you're chewing them up and spitting them out, and it's not like there's a retirement plan. These guys are just getting paid a little bit.
They have health insurance,
and
that.
The problem is they're getting a little bit of attention from it, you know, and like the shit that people will do for attention these days is just, man, not for me. Yeah. And that's another thing about fighting that's changed so much. It's just like, I don't know, man. I remember it would be more fun before social media, and now it's just like you gotta. Did you even train if you didn't take a picture? You know, like were you even at the gym?
You have to play this online game too, and calling people out.
Well, you got a bunch of pretenders, you know, guys with like 1 or 2 amateur fights, like making themselves out to be like champions, and people are just eating this shit up, and like then they get this big following, and then they just like they're using fighting to springboard something else, you know, like Paige Van Zandt, you know, she wasn't never that good of a fighter, but she was super marketable, and once she got to a certain popularity level with the UFC, now she's just doing her own thing. She's exploiting herself, you know, and freaking just she's a complete sellout, and she's not even fighting anymore, you know, and it's just like there's a lot of that shit. Like Jake Paul, he didn't pay his dues. You know, he never paid his dues.
So that's not somebody I had on here, but this is a perfect like conversation topic. I mean, somebody
that guy
who is just purely internet famous.
I'll fight him, fucking
you know,
no problem.
Respect. I mean, I don't know. This kind of echoes back to what you're just saying. I mean, it looks like he's training and putting in the work.
He's putting in the work.
He is beating the guys. Okay, so we can concede.
But he didn't pay his dues.
He didn't go through the system.
He's making more money than like 99% of the fighters out there.
0.9999.
Yeah, exactly. And like he's never really fought that anyone that good. He fought Fury. You know, Fury's little brother. Tommy, yeah, and lost, and it's just like he's fighting this YouTube fighting phenomenon, man. It's just ridiculous.
It came out of nowhere, and it's really weird.
And it's just like, yeah, it's just like the car crash, you know, theory. Like everyone's gonna stop for the car crash, and that's all fighting is turning into. Mm-hmm. It's like who can make the fucking quickest little clip that can go viral. Like I like fucking substance, man. Like, I don't know what the hell I'm saying. You know what I mean? Like, I like people that have something, like a story to tell, you know? Like, fighters are so damn interesting,
yeah.
You know, and they come through so much stuff. You know, I've done so much hard stuff in my life, and, you know, it's given me strength of character, you know, and I would never change anything. But him, he just kind of fell into it. You know, he's got the means to train, and he does train hard. I think he is fairly athletic, but the guy is a scumbag. He's a complete scumbag. He's like using people, and he's doing all kinds of stuff that should have him in prison, you know, and he's like pretty much like a role model now, you know, and it's just like makes me just depressed about the future, man. You know, I don't like Conor McGregor either. You know, he's playing the Conor McGregor game. He just saw something someone else is doing. He's doing it his way, but it's like the same shit. It's just like, be a shithead, you know, and fucking get some cheap laughs and people will like you, you know, but like guys that are actually, you know, humble and, you know, smart and work their asses off to get there, just like nobody gives a shit about them because they're not speaking out, you know. And it's just kind of it's a drag, man.
Yeah. Crazy, man. It's crazy where this whole MMA and really like our society is going, because, you know, it's almost like a reflection of what's happening in the greater society. It's just made its way into MMA now.
Yeah. And it's gotten more mainstream, so
yeah,
that's what comes with it.
Yeah. UFC has grown exponentially since, we say, 2006, even when you first saw it, right? Being on Spike TV, now we're on ESPN.
It's too much. I don't even care about the cards anymore. Like, it's oversaturation, you know?
I agree, totally.
I actually... I've read a lot of pro wrestling books, you know, because I find it fascinating. There's actually a ton of links between pro wrestling and MMA. There's like, it's almost like the same life almost. But they talk a lot about overexposure, you know, and it's just like, there's so much of it that it's just like, I don't get excited for fight cards anymore. You know, they got all these fight nights, and it's just like the main events are kind of like, that's a main event fight, really? Like, it wouldn't even be like on the main card of a pay-per-view. And they're just like, I've seen some really bad fights on the undercard. I watch a lot of the undercard, and I'm seeing just such low-level fighters in there because they got to fill out the card because they got so many damn fights.
And they don't need to sell tickets anymore with them being at the Apex. So it absolutely does not matter who's on the card, really.
And it's hard for me to watch because I worked for like 15, 16 years grinding away to get there. And then I see fighters there that have like 3 or 4 fights and they're not even that good. And they're just like fighting on UFC cards. It's just like, damn, I picked the wrong time. I just was born a little too early. And I'm not trying to cry about it. If I was good enough, I would have got there, but like, yeah, it's just kind of hard to see where it's at now as opposed to back then. Back then, fighters really wanted it. Like guys like Chuck Liddell would have fought for free. Like they just loved it. That was what they did. Now it's just like, how many followers can I get? How much attention can I bring on myself?
Interesting, man. Interesting. I really love this conversation. And yeah, man, we'll have you back on again. We're going to have to watch some fights, do like a little commentary or something like that.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Yeah, let's go. So a big part of conversations with TMac is music normally. Today it's MMA. Another big part is food, right?
Food.
And we know this. I love food. We both work at the pizza spot, right?
Yeah.
So what are some of your go-to food establishments here in Denver or in Colorado generally? If you're thinking your best favorite go-to spots, where are they? If there are any. There's never usually a pause like that.
I don't go out a whole lot. I like cooking. I don't know, man. I'm reluctant to say, but I actually like Olive Garden. Okay. I know it's like a big cliche and everyone makes fun of that shit now, but I always liked Olive Garden. I like their fettuccine. Okay. I like pizza. I like Italian. I love Mexican food. I love cooking. I go and get some food and I bring it home and cook,
So when people tell me that they love cooking, what is your go-to meal that you make?
I would say the one that impresses people the most would be my biscuits and gravy.
Ooh.
Yeah, I mean, I like cooking anything. I like cooking meat, and I don't do anything super crazy, just like usually some meat and vegetables, something like that. But I think cooking is therapeutic. It's good for you.
Interesting.
I spend so much time running around all the day, and it's just nice to slow things down, and I feel like it's calming, and I enjoy it, and the ladies love it. Hey. When I can cook for a girl and actually cook well, it's definitely a benefit.
So have you made biscuits and gravy like for somebody that doesn't eat like sausage or like a meat?
No,
because I was gonna say that'd be funny if that's not a good situation.
I don't think I've ever I don't have anything against vegetarians or anything, but I don't know. I just feel like I've never been friends with one. I don't know. I feel like there's a personality trait that goes along with like people that are against meat.
Okay.
And I don't give a shit. I'm not like one way or the other. I eat meat. A lot of people get like all weird about it and stuff, and I just think it's funny,
Yeah.
Like, because it's just our
this
natural
is what we've
state,
been eating for thousands of years,
right?
Like
we're animals and we're flesh eaters and we eat meat and it's not a big deal. I feel like I've gone through a lot of dieting stuff in my career, losing weight. So,
a lot of trial and error with different diets and foods.
For sure. And, like when I was cutting down to 35, it was a 30 plus pound weight cut. I was eating bacon quite a bit, like I would eat bacon almost every day in the morning, and like you need fats, your body needs certain things, and everyone thinks like, cleaning. If I eat chicken and greens, then I'm going to be healthy, but that's not the case. But yeah, I mean, it's just like, that's a whole nother black hole of information there. There's so much to cooking and nutrition. But yeah, I mean, I'll eat anywhere really. I'm sure everyone has a dish that's good, or that they're famous for or something. I don't eat fast food. That's gross. I have once in a while, and I mean, it literally, like, my body rejects it. Like it just gives me the shit. So I don't I like to appreciate my food. I like to taste my food. You know, I like to go to steak places. I can't think of a particular one. They're all the same to me.
Nice, dude. Hey, so I'm looking forward to the biscuits and gravy. All right.
Yeah, totally.
And when you make the biscuits and gravy, I'm gonna make a Hellboy pizza.
Oh,
What
yeah.
goes on the ultimate Hellboy pizza, man?
Well, if it's from hell, it's got to be spicy.
Gotta be
right?
spicy, right? That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I just think pepperoni and jalapenos. That sounds good to me. Maybe some green peppers or something.
Okay. A little extra hot sauce on there or anything?
I don't know. Hot sauce is gross. I like peppers. I just don't like hot sauce.
Okay.
I like spicy to a degree. You know, I'm not.
Should we throw in like, you know, one of these crazy hot peppers, like a little Carolina Reaper on there, you know, really make it crazy?
Cool. No, that burns both times, like in and out. It's just the worst, man. Like, I don't know why people do that. It's just like, I don't know why you do that to yourself. That's just a weird thing that I don't understand. People that like spicy food, you can't even taste it at that point.
Yeah. There's definitely a certain level. I love me some hot wings, some buffalo wings, but it's to a certain point.
Yeah,
I like watching hot ones and let everybody else eat the really super spicy stuff. And
I fought a guy
reaction.
that was on Hot Ones. Actually, it was hilarious. He's a really cool guy, really funny guy. I fought him in a boxing match. He was on Hot Ones like a year later or something.
The host?
No, not the host. He was one of the contestants or something.
Oh, okay.
He's like one of the people eating hot wings.
Oh, who was it?
Oh, what's his damn name? I fought so many people.
We're gonna have to look up the record.
I can look
and
it
find
up.
it.
Where's my phone? No, I beat him in the King of Sparta tournament. And it was a boxing match, my only boxing match. I'm 1-0 undefeated professional boxer.
Talk about that night a little bit, man. That's 3 different fights in a night, right?
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. That fight, that was the last time I won a fight, actually. That was the peak of my career, you know. I was the favorite to win it. I was the number 1 seed. You know, I was the top bantamweight at the time, and I knew I was going to win. You know, I'm not usually super cocky going into fights, but I just felt really confident going into that particular tournament. It's a lot of fights, so you never know what's going to happen, and so much bad things can happen in fights that you just it's hard to get through 3 fights in a night. And I actually thought about calling it after the second fight because I had such a hard fight with Ben Lugo, which was a rematch. But I fought on, and I won the tournament. Zach Cooper was the guy that I beat in the boxing match that was eventually on Hot Ones. I've never actually seen it. I just seen the picture of him like on TV and making a face like he's about to cry eating a Reaper or some shit like that. But really cool guy. Really fucking awesome guy. He was super funny. One of the nicest guys I ever fought. And he was like really scary looking before the fight. I was like, damn, this dude looks tough. Like, why am I fighting this guy in the first round? I thought I was the number 1 seed, but he wasn't that tough.
That's funny, man. It's interesting looking at how all fighters react and what's their like attitude or mentality and their body language. When you're in the cage, you're like smiling. You're like looking around.
So
at least some of the fights that I see, you
that
were calm,
tournament,
man.
I was always known for being super calm, which was funny to me because I was scared most of the time.
On the
like,
inside,
scared as hell.
It's not that way, huh?
I used to, I would go crazy before fights. I would pace for like a good hour, 2 hours, just pace in a circle, not say anything to anybody, and just start, you know, pounding my chest and screaming and shit, being all crazy. To me, it was like, I've never been a confrontational kind of person. I've never been much of a fighter outside of the cage. I was when I was super young, but I kind of got over that with age. So, like, for me to fight, I had to get in this whole mental state where I was just like, bro, I'm going to kill this guy. Like, going into that primal state, which I really loved, you know. And that was the thing about the tournament. It's like you have 3 fights, so you got to go up and down and up and down and up one more time, and hope that the other guy is beat up as you are, because you're both going to be beat up by the time you make it to the finals. But no, that fight, I remember a lot about that night. You know, I remember being worried about the first guy because he was super fit. You know, he looked a lot better than he actually was. And then I had to rematch Lugo in the second fight, which pissed me off beyond belief. That was the most pissed off I've ever been in a fight. And there's a picture of me right before the fight. I look like I'm trying to murder murder him with my eyes. Because I fought him once, and I beat him, easily. And then he ended up in the tournament, but he was on the opposite side of the bracket. So I'm like, if I fight him, it'll be in the finals. So then somebody dropped out like 2 weeks out, and they moved him up from like the number 7 seed to the number 4, which put him on the same side of the bracket as me. So I'm like, they're angling to get this son of a bitch a rematch. And then when I fought him in the finals, or in the semifinals, I was just like, I'm going to kill this guy. Like, I'm going to beat his ass so bad that he never wants to rematch me again. So I did. I beat the fucking shit out of him. And then I went on to beat Zach Galloway or Cory Galloway in the finals by a leg kick. But yeah, I mean, I'm actually cool with Lugo. We're actually good friends now. Every time I see him, we chill, we smoke some bud together at the fights. I see him quite a bit. We train together. But yeah, it's funny, you don't really hold grudges after fights, but at the time I was just like, I'm gonna fucking kill this son
you were not feeling it.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny how that goes. I've never had any real animosity with anybody. I'm sure some people didn't like me, after I beat the shit out of them, but I've been friends with quite a few guys I fought. I've always been cool. I've always been known to be cordial and polite with everybody, except at weigh-ins. I'm actually known by the commission to just don't fuck with me at weigh-ins because I'm just like at my worst possible state. But no, we're a community. We're like a fraternity. I feel like fighters should look out for each other, even if we have fought. I don't hold any grudges. I've actually been very lucky. I haven't made any enemies. I can't think of anybody I've made an enemy with my whole time in the fight industry, which is nice. Yeah. I'm not holding any grudges. Maybe someone else is, but who gives a shit about that?
We're good on this side.
But no, it's an interesting game. It's not like people think it is sometimes. We're not all just a bunch of thugs and, crazy people. I've met a lot of really interesting, really smart people through fighting and especially jiu-jitsu. I've met, I know millionaires and doctors and lawyers and pilots and all kinds of cool shit. Like the gym is where cops and criminals coexist. You meet like the most interesting people. And like me, I've always been just like a poor white kid, like I don't really fit in with a lot of these groups. But when you go to the gym, you're just hanging out with people that you would never be in contact with otherwise. And it's just like a really cool dynamic. And my, what do you call it? My networking, through fighting and jiu-jitsu is incredible. I know a lot of people, that would do favors for me. I do a lot of favors for other people, and they would do the same for me. And I mean, if the apocalypse ever happened, I think we'd all band together, and like defend each other, and it would be interesting. It would be
That'd be a hell of a group, man. Don't mess with that group.
That's what I'm saying. It's good to be part of something special like that, because you never know. It's any day now.
Fucking A, right? The way things are going, you never know. You have to introduce me to some of these people. All right, I'm going to come out to the next set of fights. But just like I talk about with supporting independent artists and musicians, we got to do that in all the things that we follow. And like, before people become professional, they start somewhere. There's a bunch of regional fights happening, amateur fights. So, go out, support some local fights. That's what I'm looking to do. I'm going to, we're going to make it out to some fights soon. You hit me up for a few before, but hopefully I can make the next one.
Saturday.
Where at?
I think the Brighton. I'm not sure. I'd have to look, but there's some Sparta fights this weekend I'm going to.
Okay, hey, maybe I'll be
Lugo's fighting. Fights. Beat his ass twice. He's in the main event.
Okay, all right. So, hey, support independent, whatever it is. Music, fighters, chefs, podcasters, support independence. That's what we're here for, what we're about. Josh, anything else you want to say and leave the people with?
No, just thanks for having me. It was fun. I like, it's always fun talking about this stuff. I don't get a chance to talk to it very much. Yeah, thanks for having me. It was cool.
Absolutely, man. We're going to do it again for sure. Conversation with TMac, we out.